Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to this special edition of Ceraulo Sports Talk with me, Joe Ceraulo. Joining me now, it's TSN basketball insider and color analyst for all Toronto Raptors games on TSN, Brooklyn's own Jack Armstrong. Jack, thanks so much for joining the show.
Joe, thank you so much, buddy. I'm happy to be on with you.
It's great having you. And before we dive into the Raptors and the current state of the NBA, we were talking not too long ago about your coaching career. Spent about a decade with the Purple Eagles of Niagara in Western New York. Jack, you know I'm a St. Bonaventure alum. What was the Western New York basketball scene like during your time there?
It was great. I really enjoyed it. I mean, obviously, there's a great tradition with the Little Three. Now it's called the Big Four, with the University of Buffalo having Division One. But it was fabulous. There's so much tradition when you look at a Niagara St. Bonaventure game, or Canisius, Niagara, Canisius, St. Bonaventure, dating back, way back. And so to me, it was always special playing in Olean against St. Bonaventure. Didn't win a lot of games down there. It was never an easy place to win, but nonetheless, it was a great experience. And being a New Yorker, you think the sun rises and sets, in the five boroughs of New York City, and nothing else in the world exists. So to come to Western New York, and I've lived here ever since. I've been here since 1988, and have had the good fortune to work in Toronto since 1998. To really see that there is a tremendous basketball tradition, great rivalries, wonderful people, fabulous players and coaches, and it's been a real joyous ride, and an experience I'll always cherish.
Now, I understand that you've got a pretty good relationship with Mark Schmidt, of course, the coach of the Bonnies, turned that program around the last 15 years or so. How's his golf game, Jack? Because I've heard a lot of good things about it, but I want to know who usually wins when you guys head out onto the course.
Actually, Mark doesn't play enough, and the reason why is he's out hustling, recruiting all the time. But the times I've played with Mark, honestly, I don't kid around. I mean, each hole that goes along, he gets better and better, because he's a natural athlete. As you know, he played at Boston College, and he and Doug Flutie were good friends back in the day at BC. And but Mark is if Mark played a lot, he'd be really good. And you could see it clearly. But he's a lot of fun to play with. And Mark has done an amazing job. There are certain coaches that can overcome the challenges of of where they are. And to me, when I look at the job Mark Schmidt has done as head coach at Robert Morris and now at St. Bonaventure, and Mark and I have a true great bond, because he worked for a guy named Skip Prosser at Xavier, and Skip was one of my closest friends in coaching, and I was at Skip's wedding, and Skip, we lost him too early when he was the head coach at Wake Forest, passed away of a heart attack, and was one of the great people I've ever met in coaching. And Mark and I, every time we see each other, we talk about Skip. But Mark has done an amazing job at St. Bonaventure. I'm a Fordham guy, and you look at Fordham's location and all those kind of things, and unfortunately, they've struggled. And yet you look at St. Bonaventure, located only in New York, not an easy place to recruit, and they have managed to do a remarkable job there. So I think Mark is one of those guys, pound for pound. And I don't know, I can't understand it, why a guy like Mark Schmidt isn't on the top of every search list when a job opens up. Because there's an old line they used to say about Don Shula: he could take his and beat yours. He can take yours and beat his. And to me, Mark's one of those guys, impactful coaches, that no two jobs are equal. And, if you put a coach at a certain job, the coach might be average, but the job's great. And that coach is going to do really well, even though he's average. And on the other hand, you could take an above average to very good to great coach and put him at an average to below average job. And somehow, some way, he's going to, by the force and will of his personality, get it to achieve at a high level. And I look at Mark at being one of those guys. And, you know, when you see major job openings and I don't see his name, I'm shocked by that. And I think people take him for granted. I think he's done an amazing job there.
Yeah, absolutely. And being a part of that team my sophomore year, now a couple of years back, that beat UCLA, I was the beat writer for that team, traveling across the country with them for the NCAAs. You really saw what he was capable of doing. I mean, that UCLA roster had 4 or 5-star recruits all over it. And he just led an incredible charge in that tournament. Now, Jack, after Niagara, you leave in the late 90s, 98, you go to the Raptors. What prompted that change from being the youngest coach in Division I men's college hoops to all of a sudden the analyst for Toronto?
I got fired. I mean, that's basically what happened. I mean, you know, and that's the greatest thing about this job. Being a sports analyst is it's kind of like it's sports version of a white collar crime. You go from being the idiot coach to suddenly being the expert on television and radio. So it's the greatest scam going. I highly recommend it. So yeah, I mean, that's literally what happened. You know, the thing that I was very fortunate. I had a year left on my contract, Joe, at Niagara. And I'm not going to lie to you, I was burnt out. I was physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually just burnt, worn out from the grind of coaching. And I had a fun time. I loved it. I just needed a year off. And I had a year left on my contract. So I had a little financial cushion. And I said, you know, I'm going to try broadcasting for a year. And I got hired by a number of U.S. networks, MSG, Fox, ESPN Regional, Empire Sports Network, which used to exist in Western New York, some conference packages. And then on top of that, the big one was getting hired as the radio analyst with the Toronto Raptors. Chuck Swirsky, who's now with the Chicago Bulls, Chuck and I were hired together at the Fan 590 and with the Raptors to call the radio games. And it was a startup company. The Raptors had just finished their third year in the NBA. They were 16-66. Things were not good. Vancouver was already showing signs of whether they could actually make it as an NBA franchise and as an NBA market. And there were a lot of questions of whether the NBA would survive in Canada. So I just kind of stepped in at a time that I would call the perfect storm. So it's the start of the 4th season with the Raptors. And Glenn Grunwald, who's now the head of Canada Basketball, made a masterful draft night move, trading Antoine Jameson's draft rights and getting Vince Carter. So the first game I called as a Raptor announcer was Vince Carter's first game against the Boston Celtics in Boston against Paul Pierce and the Celtics. And I had coached against Paul when I was the head coach at Niagara. We played Kansas. And now both of those guys will end up in the Hall of Fame. But to have Vince Carter changed everything. And Chuck and I were lucky enough to now have this incredible player who was at that time, because he played at Carolina, being compared to Michael Jordan and all that. And so, and then Vince wins the dunk contest, and you know the rest is history. So we were with a startup company, and so we got in at a time where you can develop your skills, and basketball was new, and you could have fun with it. And to me, I thought, Joe, I would do it for a year, maybe 2, and then go right back into coaching again. And my friends honestly said, "Are you out of your mind? Look at you. You're happy. You're having a great time. You're around the game. You're around players and coaches and broadcasters and scouts and refs and fans, and you're just loving it. And you don't have the pressure of winning and losing and recruiting. Why would you ever consider going back to coaching?" So thank God I saw the light, and here I am 22 years later, still doing it.
And it certainly paid off this past year. If you're just joining us here on Ceraulo Sports Talk, that's Raptors color analyst for TSN, Jack Armstrong, joining me on this episode. Jack, you mentioned Vince Carter. You've been around a ton of great players: Vince Carter, Chris Bosh, DeRozan, Kyle Lowry. None quite like Kawhi Leonard. After what you witnessed a season ago, what is it about Kawhi that just makes him different on the court?
I witnessed it a year ago in Vancouver at training camp. To watch him come in the gym, lace up his kicks, and go to work. First guy in line, all business, full speed, no nonsense, eye contact with the coach, very diligent. Actions speak louder than words. Silent assassin. And Kawhi is a man of few words. His actions speak for him. And when you do have a conversation with him, it's very brief, it's to the point, but there's substance behind it. He's a very smart guy, very calculated. And I enjoyed my time with Kawhi. Obviously, not only because he was a great player and the Raptors won, but he brought an element as a former coach that I looked at and said, I respect this guy. I mean, this guy is serious about his craft. He's a pro. This guy's a pro. And I think him and Danny Green, watching them those first few days in training camp at Vancouver, you could just feel an inner a confidence level in the room where you go, okay, these guys have rings. They're champions. They come from San Antonio. They know how things work. And the Raptors were right there. And they honestly were right there. Dwayne Casey did an amazing job. DeMar DeRozan was a fabulous player and an incredible person. And for whatever reason, they just came up a little short. And the little short was obviously LeBron James. And as we saw in The Last Dance, there were a lot of teams that just couldn't get by Michael Jordan and the Bulls. And I think the Raptors were a great team with tremendous coaching and all that, and they just couldn't get by LeBron. But now the Raptors had their LeBron. They had Kawhi. And Kawhi was, again, a guy that around the group, people began to realize, hey, man, this is how we do it here. And he and Danny Green did a great job. And you look at the Raptors this year, and you can't tell me that every single guy didn't benefit from that experience. I look at the growth of OG Anunoby now as a player, and I look at the fact that, he had to deal with LeBron, with Kawhi a lot in practice, at the same position. You learn from someone when they're taking some of your minutes. I look at Norm Powell and how he's developed, and the fact that Danny Green played ahead of him. And now he's playing a lot of those minutes that Danny Green played. And you could see those things really come out in those plays now. And the Raptors have had a great season this year. I'm not going to lie to you, Joe. I've had more fun this year than maybe I did a year ago. I mean, because it's unexpected, and it's been great. I mean, I thought the Raptors were going to be really good this year. I didn't think they were going to be this good. I mean, they've been amazing. They have the third best record in the NBA, second best record in the East. They've been absolutely decimated with injuries. And here they are right now. Look at where they've been and we're all, it's been a great ride. They're a tremendous group of guys, and it's been a fun team to watch.
Yeah, no, this team has been a blast. And, preseason, I recall picking them for fourth in the East. I think I was higher than a lot of people I knew, but like yourself, no way I could have seen them currently having the third best record in the NBA when the season went down. And a big part of their success has been Pascal Siakam's jump from a great complimentary player to Kawhi to now one of the league's superstars at such a young age. How do you think this team would have fared had the season not have been paused?
Oh, I think this team is right in the mix for a title run again. And Joe, the reason I say that, there are just certain teams you're around that have it, and it came out even the last night we played. We played on a Sunday, I think it would have been March 8th in Sacramento, and had an incredibly hard-fought win in Sacramento on Sunday night. Got on the charter and flew to Salt Lake City to play on Monday on a back-to-back. the two toughest places to play in the NBA on a back-to-back are Denver and Salt Lake City, because you're playing at altitude. And particularly then combine that with the fact it's the last game on your West Coast trip. And usually from a mental perspective, having been in the NBA for 22 years, that last game on a West Coast trip, when you're about to fly back through the night to go east, guys are just like worn out. Like, I just want to get home. And the Jazz are sitting there. They hadn't played on Sunday, just waiting for you. So you're like, this is your classic NBA scheduled loss. And the Raptors amazingly go out and just stand in the center of the ring for 15 rounds and just go after the Utah Jazz and beat them. To me, getting on that plane that night, flying through the middle of the night, I said to myself, man, this group has it. And, you look at a Pascal Siakam, you look at a Kyle Lowry, a Fred VanVleet, they have great makeup and toughness, and they're a joy to be around. So to me, I look at the Raptors. Now, again, I don't know what the dynamics are going to be. You don't, I don't. Are we playing regular season games before we play? Are we going right in the playoffs? Are the playoffs going to be 2 out of 3, 3 out of 5, 4 out of 7? Your guess is as good as mine. Where are they going to? I don't know anything. None of us do. We're all guessing right now. But I do think that if this team's healthy and is able to, come back and kind of hit that ground running, I think they're going to be right there again.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun watching them go to work. And, I know you appreciate him, having been around him and the team so long, but I talk about Siakam's rise to stardom. Kyle Lowry, every year, right in the mix, quietly just goes about his business, makes his teammates look better. And I think that him and Siakam, really, their chemistry this season has been a lot of the reason for the team's success.
Oh, no doubt. Kyle's like a fine wine. He gets better with age. You look at him right now, you look at what he's doing. I'm not into all the analytics stuff with the win shares and all that stuff. It's too complicated for me. I just trust my eyes and I trust my gut. And I look at a Kyle Lowry and I think back to a John Stockton, Jason Kidd, Steve Nash, Mark Jackson, great point guards, Hall of Fame point guards at the latest stages of their career, still being able to impact winning. And I look at Kyle right now, who will be the first guy to have his number retired. He's the greatest Raptor ever. He'll have a statue out front of the building. And he's a guy now, when I look at it, he's going to end up in the Hall of Fame. If he can stay healthy here and finish out his career pretty strong, I really think he's going to be in the Hall of Fame. I think little by little his case is being made, and he's making it for himself. But to me, the guy's an amazing competitor. And then Siakam, the thing I like about him is the fact that he wasn't in North America that long. He did a year of prep school, then did a few years at New Mexico State. And I think too often bad habits form. And I think he was kind of a blank canvas when he came here. And I think he's a sponge. He wants to get better. He's got a great attitude. He's a worker. He's a grinder. He just brings an infectious joy to how he plays. And the guy is like Usain Bolt, man. I don't know if there's a power forward in the NBA that from end line to end line is faster than him. And he and Kyle Lowry have an amazing ability where Lowry will throw the ball ahead to him. He'll catch it and lay it in on the break, and the guy's just fast and he's quick. He's improved all the areas of his game. Does he still have areas to improve? Sure, but no one's going to outwork him. So those two guys are the heart and soul of the team, and that's a pretty good heart and soul to have.
Absolutely. And Jack, before I get back to one more thing regarding your broadcast career, you've mentioned two names at different times so far throughout this interview, LeBron James and Paul Pierce. Well, Paul Pierce just released his top 5 greatest NBA players of all time, and he left LeBron James off the list. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I'd have to disagree respectfully with Paul. I think some of that sometimes is personal rather than objective. And I think as much as and Paul now is a television personality for ESPN. I think you do have to be objective, and you can't allow the personal element to come into play. There's no question that LeBron James is a great, great player. I can't speak for Bill Russell because I really didn't see him play. I watched a lot of video of him. I saw Oscar Robertson at the end of his career. I've seen Kareem, who was a great, great player. Jordan, Bird, Magic. I've seen all those guys. I just can't see how you can't have LeBron in that five. I would, Elgin Baylor, I remember at the end of his career, Jerry West, Havlicek. I mean, I've seen all these guys. To me, I really believe that LeBron, he's got to be right on that list. I mean, the guy's a tremendously impactful player. The guy makes everyone around him better. And to me, I'd have to respectfully disagree with that. I really think that, I'm right now, I couldn't formulate a top five. I'd have to sit down and really think about it. I've thrown a lot of names out there, but to sit and go 1 through 5 right now, I would put Michael Jordan number 1.
Okay.
And then I would definitely put Jordan number 1. And then after that, you could really start to have your conversations about, Kareem, Bill Russell, LeBron, Magic, Bird. There's so many guys in that, Oscar Robertson, that you'd have to sit around and really have a long debate. But I think LeBron is absolutely deserving to be in that top 5, wherever it fits, and in that discussion regardless.
And Jack, before I let you go, I got to ask you about one of my favorite lines, not just of yours, but of any broadcaster out there. I've been watching a lot of reruns from last postseason over the past 2 months, and every time I hear, "Get that garbage out of here," it brings a huge smile to my face. First time I noticed, I was like, this analyst is not from Toronto, and that's when I found out you had your Brooklyn roots. What's the story behind that? How did you come up with that?
The way I came up with it was basically growing up in Brooklyn. You're playing in the schoolyard, and someone blocks your shot. They say, "Get that blank and blank out of here." And so I don't know. I can't remember when it happened. A play like that happened at a game, and a Raptor had a block shot. And I was about to say, "Get that blank and blank out of here." I would have been former Raptor broadcaster at that point. So I just said, I just inserted garbage for that. And it kind of just took off. So it's become one of those things where I say it all the time. And, you'll have particularly the shot blockers, like we had a guy, Bismack Biyombo, who played for the Raptors. He now plays with the Hornets. And every time I'd see Biz, he'd go, "Jack, get that garbage out of," and so they, the guys that are the shot blockers, they enjoy it. Yeah, it's become one of those things where you have little kids come up to you and they imitate you, and everyone puts the Brooklyn accent on, and then the other one, hello, just came from literally, again, growing up in Brooklyn, probably you get in trouble for saying it. A pretty woman would walk by, you'd go, "Hello," like, wow, I'm impressed. So basically, I've taken that and used the hello of, like, when something really impressive happens in a game, I'm like, "Hello." So those are the two that have taken off, and now they got T-shirts and hats, and people go crazy about it, and it's been fun. Obviously, you want to also be that guy that they remember something intelligent that you say on television. You hope that maybe a point that you make about an inbound play or something strategic. But most of the time, people just come right up to you and go, "Hello, get that bitch out of here." So at least they remember you for something. And it's an honor. And to me, it's been fun. I've had a great experience for 22 years working in Toronto and across Canada, and people are very warm and welcoming. And I feel like it's my adopted home, and I've had a fabulous experience. And I hope to do it as long as they'd like me to be there. And we'll see how it goes. Just day by day, and hope to get back to the NBA soon. And but it's all got to be done in a way that's obviously conscious of people's health and safety. And fingers crossed that happens.
Absolutely. And last thing, one way that you're actually really getting involved with people's health and the frontline workers, you took Get That Garbage Out of Here, you turned it into Get That COVID Out of Here. How can viewers get involved and help that cause?
Well, it's nice of you to mention that, Joe. They can just go to hellojack.ca, and they have the T-shirts and all different stuff that you could get, and all the proceeds go to the frontline workers. So hellojack.ca, and we're donating all the proceeds to some cool charities, and so I'm very happy to be part of it. And that's right, get that COVID-19 out of here. So. And let's hope we get that out of here, and let's hope we little by little get back to what we once had. And I think we all appreciate that much more now what we did have when we had it. And I think we're all going to be that much more cognizant of that and appreciative of it, and celebrate and connect with the joy of life that it truly is when you have the benefit to do what you want.
TSN's own Jack Armstrong. Jack, thanks so much for joining me here on Ceraulo Sports Talk.
Joe, my pleasure. Have a great day and all the best.
You too. Stay safe, stay healthy.
Go Bonnies.